Here we go. We got 4 of the 5 up. John is in the background. Going to pull up the 5th. Once it's good to go, we got thumbs up. I don't see. There's the check. Alrighty. Welcome in, guys. Tuesday night, Tuesday evening, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday morning. I guess Broncos country is a worldwide thing, but welcome in to Building the Broncos on Tuesday. I am your co-host, Nick Kendell, along with my good friend and co-host, Carl Dumler. Carl, welcome in. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. You know, I'm living the hard life. I spent the day at the swimming pool. Yeah.
Oh, life of Riley.
A lot of fun hanging out with the kid, getting a little swimming in, getting a little sun. Got a little color today. I know you out there at the Pacific Northwest, you're going to be white as a ghost here pretty soon.
I got burnt last week because it's just not as hot, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm fine, whatever. And actually burnt the hell out of my fingers the other day. So working on a charcoal grill and adjusted it and it went. So I'm good though. But welcome in, guys. This is Building the Broncos, obviously our Tuesday night show. Second show for me today. So I'm going to keep it going here, keeping the good vibes going. We got Dylan Von Arks in the house. Speaking of good vibes, sup Broncos country. How you doing, Dylan? Good to see you. George Newton's in the house. Said, sup, Dylan. Where's the sup to your people? Actually, coming in here hot with the 199 super from George Newton saying thumbs up. Thank you very much, George. And then after 5 years of losing, I see huge strides this year. Well, hopefully the losing can tighten up a little bit and we can get winning back on track as well, George. But appreciate so much the super. I have to poke fun at you. You know, if it's there, I'm going to take it. I definitely live by there's no joke that's like too obvious that you shouldn't make, right? Like you have to take the joke if it's there.
Yeah. I do have to make fun of you the other day of, I think the question was like, if you could tell your old self one sentence, and Nick has like 6 sentences because that's Nick. Hey,
the first one was one sentence. And then I expanded upon that. I said invest in Amazon and Apple because yes. I deserved it. I deserve it sometimes. And you are 100% correct. I am a long walk to a small glass of water sometimes. Mike S. in here. What's up, Broncos country? Good to see you, Mike S. Thank you for joining us today. Roll Tide. We got Nathan Noble. Let's just call you Nat. Nat, how you doing? Let's go, says Nat. Well, thank you very much, Nat. Appreciate you. We got KB82 saying congrats to Nikola Jokic on winning the MVP. I hope I nailed it. I am not a basketball follower, really. So when you do football as much as Carl and I do, I feel like you don't have time to really watch other sports as much. But Tim's in the house. Okay.
Oh boy.
Quick story, real quick. So Tim and I, we go back a bit, back and forth on Twitter, whatnot. He's definitely one of the bigger block people out there, which, Stan your guy. But then Nick make a mountain of a molehill. I don't think I'd do that. But anyway, I want to bet with Tim. It's where I think the bet was Sam Darnold would not be on the Jets roster come the draft. And he said he 100% would be based on some tweets and reports. I'm like, it's not happening. They have the number 2 pick. They're going to reset the contract. I can't say they have a chance to pick a quarterback and Sam Darnold's been dreadful. Well, lo and behold, Sam Darnold's not on the Jets come draft day. And I win myself. I should have probably adjusted the head size. My head's a little too big for this guy. I win a Tim Wentz lawyer hat in the bet. So otherwise, he would have been getting one of these bad guys from me at my expense. But Tim's still got to get one of those hats, even if it is at his. Honestly, it should have been he has to buy the hat. That would have been a better bet in hindsight. But you live and learn, and hopefully Tim lived and learned not to bet with me, because I'm going to win. But thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, we were talking before the show about how sleek of a logo that is here. So, man, free advertising today as well for Tim. But I'm going to put back on the Building Broncos, but I told you, buddy, I'd wear it today. So thank you very much, Tim. And thank you to everybody who made draft bets with me this year. I went 5-0. So you helped my Venmo account. I appreciate that, guys, a lot. Ooh. But let's get into it here. Let's get the reads going. Greg Smith in here in the house too. Love Greg. But Building the Broncos, guys, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Yes. Okay. My time zone's too many shows these days. I can't even. What time is it now? I don't know. You can follow us at BTB Football Pod. Follow the main account at Mile High Huddle. And also, guys, you can follow Carl and myself, Carl Dumler at Carl Dumler MHH, and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. I think Chad changed how mine looked because he wanted to mimic Scott and for the other shows, but Carl Dumler MHH. Also, guys, please also follow our friend Buona Beast at John K MHH. as well. He's working the ones and twos in the background. We wouldn't be able to do the show without him. It would definitely not be as clean and smooth. Talking about the hats and the merchandise earlier. If you guys like this guy right here, make sure you go to huddleuppod.com, as Chad likes to say, to get your swag on. And then, guys, if you're joining us on YouTube today, we do appreciate, obviously, the super chats. That is the life. Well, you guys are the lifeblood of the show, but the super chats don't hurt. Maybe they're like the red blood cells, right? They oxygenate us. But number one thing you could do for us is subscribe, like, and share on YouTube, or click those thumbs up if you're joining us on Facebook. All right. And a couple more super chats here. We got, talk about double dipping today. Malcolm's in the house again. Charlie Beagle's in the house. Robert Caslow again. Malcolm Brown. Good to see you, Malcolm. We got Zwebby in the house. We got a bunch of people in the house. It's good to see. Let me see. Nick went from beers to bets. Yeah. Honestly, that's not a bad call, Roy. And Chase Wellner's in the house as well. I love Chase. Actually, I hate that picture, though. Really, really upsetting me. And he's wearing a flaming soccer ball shirt. I'm wearing an old shirt from my dad he wore in the 1980s, and he had a run-in with there's a funny picture of my dad pissed off in this shirt because he had a run-in with Reggie Jackson. I don't know if you remember that name means anything. He was like a Yankee for a long time. Yep. Grade A-hole, apparently, according to my dad. But there's a funny picture of my dad in this one. And Carl, where's the guitar? That's a good. Everybody wants to know. Have you been practicing?
So I have a little. It's actually in the other corner of my office right now because somebody wanted to play it. And so they grabbed it, moved the whole stand, moved everything to another corner of my office. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't brought it back for some reason. I'm not sure. So it's still in my office. I've not had it stolen or taken away or lost or anything like that. But yeah, it kind of moved into a different spot because it's a little bit easier to play over there.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to bust it out at some point. I've been listening to some folk music, so it's making me... I need to fix that, the mandolin. The bridge is a little bit bent, so it needs to be fixed, make it really hard to play the... up on the top. But let's get it going here. I want to get to the main topic here today. It's Webby in the house too. I think Sternad and Barron are the future of our linebacking core. Well, this is a good transition from Zwebby here because we're talking about the current Broncos linebacking core here, and pretty interesting. I gotta say myself, Pro Football Focus, love them, hate them. People love them when they say good things about your players, and hate them when they don't say good things. But they had a recent ranking of the Denver Broncos, or I guess linebackers across the league, where they had, here we go, right there, the top 10 units in the NFL from PFF Sam Monson, who you can see over there on the right. And very interesting, given the dialogue would be the word, surrounding the Broncos linebacking core, like how terrible they are, blah, blah, blah. The number 4 ranked off-ball linebacking unit, this isn't including Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. I've seen some people say, it's because they included the edge rushers. No, they did not. Pro Football Focus was on the forefront of making people change from edge to, or linebacker to edge, and defensive end to edge. So Broncos at 4, Carl. What do you think here? Walk me through this because I was a little shocked. I knew that they ranked Alexander Johnson at like 9 and Josie Jewell at 19 or something like that. But still pretty interesting.
Well, I'd say one, you and I have talked about it before. The off-ball linebacker position has been very diminished in the NFL. It's just teams kind of go, we can plug and play guys. We're not going to, unless they have the top tier guys like a Fred Warner, Devin White, those kind of guys, you really don't want to pay them.
Carl, it sounded like you were going to say some more names there, and then you stalled because you couldn't think of another. I mean, there's other names too. But
okay, but there are. I mean, there's a lot of other guys. Looking at that list, I mean, Leonard, of course, Wagner is another one. If we're looking at the top 5 teams and what kind of linebacker they have, because I think that's a big part of why they are there because they have one of those top tier guys. Yep. The Broncos, the reason that I think that they're up there is because last year, Josie Jewell, Alexander Johnson, they both played pretty average for the position. I mean, they didn't wow you by any means, but they didn't sit out there and be the main issue on the defense either. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of teams where that is one of the big weaknesses they have. Linebacker, they just can't find a guy that can do something. They might have one great one and one terrible one. Broncos have 2 average ones, and that's good enough for number 4 in the NFL. And I think this is again where. One, I think people underestimate a little bit of what Fangio's defense can do. What I love is that he never asks his players really to do what's beyond their ability. Like, if you're not great in coverage, I'm not going to have you dropping back on man coverage against a Travis Kelce. At least not very often. I'll do it every once in a while, but not very often. If you're better at coming downhill like Alexander Johnson, hey, that's what I'm going to do with you. I'm going to have you shooting the A-gap on a regular basis when it comes to a passing down. And Josey Jewell, he's not fast, but he's smart. Okay, we're going to drop him into that zone coverage spot and let him use his intelligence to read the play and come up with a big stop. They're both very solid as tacklers as well. Mm-hmm. They're both solid in the run game, and they got better as the season went on as well. That's something that was kind of underrated, I think, for the Broncos. So I don't quite agree that they should be number 4, but I think it is one of the more underrated groups that the Broncos do have on this roster. And that's not even counting now the backups that they have, because I do like Sternad. I liked him coming out of the draft. I don't think he's going to be some outstanding all-star by any means, but as a backup player coming in, I think he can go out there and do some decent things. And of course, going and getting Browning, adding one of the more athletic players in the entire draft. Hey, you can develop him for a year while you are letting Jewell and Alexander Johnson play out the last year of their contract, and just kind of see, hey, can we turn this guy into one of those stars? So it's a group that has average starters and potential behind them. And that's really what you like in the NFL.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right here. And I think the Broncos linebacking duo of Alexander Johnson and Josey Jewell get somewhat a bad rap from the fan base because they're not these athletic dynamos. But I think in the NFL, that's for the linebackers position specifically. The athleticism is nice to have, but it does not equate to incredible linebacking play. I mean, we've seen a lot of busts in the draft at the linebacker position where these guys are just athletes, but they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. Now, I don't even want to say Alexander Johnson and Josey Jewell are average at best. I think they are at least average, and they're limited is a word that I'd use in many areas, but they do a lot of things really well, and they're not going to kill you out there, right? Like, especially in this defense, a lot of the back seven and the coverages are based on discipline, and these guys aren't putting themselves in positions where you're losing the integrity of the back seven and leaving yourself vulnerable. So they're both instinctual players. They're not being asked, also credit to the coaching staff, like you said, to do more than they are capable of too often. Now, sometimes you are going to see, this is just the nature of the AFC West. Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, I'm sorry. They're going to get theirs, right? Like that's just, that's the reality of it. Like, that's like, oh man, why couldn't we stop LeBron James from getting to the rim? LeBron James is going to get to the God blessed rim sometimes. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're going to do. Yeah. Well,
except for against the Toon Squad.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But, I think a great stat, we have some people saying, I thought Tampa Bay would be number 1. You think about that Super Bowl, Travis Kelce still had over 100 yards receiving, 10 receptions. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, look at these linebackers. They shut down Travis Kelce. He still went for 100 yards. And he's had a couple drops even in that. He should have had an even bigger game than what he did. And it just, unfortunately, even the greatest tight ends, if they go man-to-man against ends in football, the tight end's going to win that battle. I'm sorry. It's just, there's such a difference. When we're talking about some tight ends that are running that 4.4 40 and they're 6'5", against a 6'2" linebacker that's running a 4.5, and the tight end knows where he's going. It sets up so well for the tight end to win that roster, or to win that battle on a regular basis. So, again, like I said, you're finding guys that can do their job and can do it within the confines of the defense. And Jewell and Alexander Johnson, they are smart. They do their job. You don't see them out of position a whole lot of times, giving up those big plays. They're not going to be world beaters by any means, and they're not going to be going to a whole lot of Pro Bowls or winning All-Pro accolades or anything like that, but they're going to do enough that you can still have a very, very good defense even with them on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And it kind of, to me, it somewhat mimics our conversation a year ago regarding Garrett Bowles, where like, oh man, he's terrible. The Broncos are dumb. They need to replace him. Why didn't they draft a tackle, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, listen, Bowles in 2019, he was average. And at the tackle position, and you want better than that, but like average still has value. And I think that's the same conversation here with Josey Jewell and Alexander Johnson, except obviously even to a lesser extent as far as value. And I know people have this romanticized view of the linebacking position, but you go through this list, you start naming these guys here, who's on these teams, and it's like, oh wow, there's a big drop off as far as like these 5-tool, 3-down linebackers. So the fact that the Broncos have solid players there, I guess the biggest concern for me, and it's more not this list, but just how the room is currently stacked, is both starters are set to be free agents at the end of this year. That puts the team in a weird situation. Everybody's like talking about Justin Strnad maybe making an impact this year as an athlete. Josey Jewell at the combine measured as a better athlete than Justin Strnad. So I don't know where this like conversation of Justin Strnad being this athletic dynamo comes from, because that's not the case. Right. But I think more so you're looking at Baron Brown and Justin Strnad. They're competing right now with their trajectory is competing with the retaining Alexander Johnson and or Josey Jewell. So it's much more about the 2022 formula for that linebacking core. But let's get to some of these super chats here regarding this conversation here. I still have that up if we want to pull it up if we need to, Carl, to reference it. But Michaela Parker coming in here saying, who cares what PFF thinks? LOL. # go Broncos. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so here's one thing. Alexander Johnson is a great example. Like you said, they have him ranked, I think, number 9 for the position. Well, the Broncos really do not ask him to drop back in coverage very often, because they know he will get eaten alive if that's what the Broncos try to do. They are asking him to come downhill and make plays. And for PFF, they value that. They value seeing this guy go make splash plays in the backfield. And it's easy to I guess, grade that compared to a guy that's trying to drop back in coverage. And so I do think that they maybe overvalue Alexander Johnson. And I would not have him ranked as the number 9 off-ball linebacker in football. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other names that come to mind when I'm thinking of that. And so I agree that the PFF
part of that, I think, is because of Vic Fangio and the scheme, putting these guys in position to grade well because they're being put in positions to do what they do well. Right. So like because of that, there's some just some bias in the data itself as far as the grades go, because you're not seeing these guys put in situations where they're obviously going to lose. So they are the linebackers, the weak spot on a stout defense. It's not their fault. The rest of this defense is absolutely stacked. That's a good point. I'm honestly more concerned about like long-term the defensive line and the edge rusher position than I am the linebacking core as it is now. And if there's any position on defense where I'm okay with average, it's the linebacking core, right? So if you suck at cornerback, we saw last year, the wheels fall off the bus. If you suck at defensive line, the Vikings last year, right? They had actually one of the most explosive offenses in football, despite the Kirk Cousins hate out there. But they couldn't. Their run defense was putrid. Their defensive tackles were terrible. But if you have okay linebackers, you can get by as long as they're not just absolutely terrible. And neither of the linebackers for the Broncos are terrible.
And this is a great question here by Robert Caslow. So how can a team prevent getting torched by tight ends? Good linebackers or cornerback play? What do you got to do to really stop a tight end? Well, scheme matters. A lot of times against those great tight ends, you got to have stacked coverage. So you got a linebacker covering the underneath passes. You got a safety who's covering the over the top. And so then they don't have to try to go all over the place. A linebacker can play looking forward instead of having to worry about turning and running. And but that means you've got double coverage on that tight end throughout most of the game. And that means single coverage other places. It means you can't do other things. You can't blitz as much as you would like. But they're just, like I said, there's not really any linebackers out there that you're sitting there saying, I want them to go one-on-one with Travis Kelce the entire game and feel great about it. Now, one of the few things that I did see, the Patriots did this when they had Aqib Talib and they were playing the Saints, and what was that tight end's name that the Saints had for a long time?
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham. He went one-on-one with Jimmy Graham the entire game, and I think held him to like one catch for 8 yards. Mm-hmm. But Aqib Talib is like a very special player that has the size, athleticism, and
tenacity.
Kind of the tenacity to actually kind of hold up in those kind of things. And I know there's some talk of like Surtain kind of fitting that kind of role, that maybe the Broncos will try to use him some that way this year going against Travis Kelce. But I think it's just going to have to be where, yeah. But I think it's one of those, you got to use a combination. You got to kind of trick them up you can't have Patrick Surtain the entire game going one-on-one, but you can't also have a linebacker and a safety always having to play that stack coverage against the tight end. So you mix it up, you try to confuse them. Hopefully you can catch them off guard, and maybe you can make a big play in that.
Yeah, that's very well put. I do think that Surtain, when you look at mock draftable, his most related player as far as his height, weight, speed from testing is Derwin James. And Derwin James, I think the Chargers went from literally like the 31st ranked team in the NFL versus tight ends the year before they drafted him to number 1 in the NFL versus tight ends because Derwin James is kind of a freak player, and Patrick Surtain might be able to do a lot of the same stuff while also playing some boundary cornerback stuff. Sidebar, I'm really curious to see how Derwin James fits in that Brandon Staley match quarters defense, but we'll see with that one. But yeah, no, it's a good topic. And as far as Kelce and the Super Bowl, yeah, I think it was 10 catches for 133 yards. And some of that, some people will say was garbage time, but that's part of it too, right? Like the Broncos haven't had, how do you stop Kelce and Waller? Well, if you have an offense that can actually play with a lead, you can dictate a little bit more and be a little bit more conservative and bracket coverage instead of having to be aggressive out there and put yourself in more vulnerable situations. Yeah, that's Jeremy coming in here. And I see there's some discourse in here as far as calling them average. But I think average to above average. And when you have two of them, that's fine. Yeah. They're both stout. They're both not going to kill you. And we see it from Devon Bush, right? Devon Bush was a killer athlete at the combine, tested like crazy. Terrible in coverage, just hasn't seen the instincts, not been great there in that regard. That's because linebackers obviously there is a point where you're like either too slow or too small or just too unathletic in general. But it is a position where it's much more about different instincts, technique, how they read the game, processing, how those guys fit. So, and you can hide them a bit as well. In terms of coverage, if your pass rush is good enough, if your secondary is good enough, et cetera, et cetera. So 4, I think, is a little bit high for this team. I mean, looking at it now, again, I'd probably still have the Colts higher just because Darius Leonard is that good. The Cowboys being at 6, I guess there's a lot of projection there with Micah Parsons, but let's be honest, Jalen Smith was not good last year. Patriots, Devonta Smith's a year older. I mean, Zach Cunningham for the Texans, maybe. The Vikings with Eric Kendricks, Anthony Barr, that's okay. DeMario Davis with the Saints, but they're trying to replace another linebacker in there as well, the rookie. So it's really just like once you put these names to paper, it's like, oh, the Broncos, there's no way they could be that high. And I still kind of feel that way. But once you actually start listing this, you're like, okay, well, there's not many good linebacking units in the NFL. And by default, that puts the Broncos up there a little bit higher. It's kind of the conversation we had with, like, again, Garrett Bowles a year ago. Mimics it very closely.
Right. And Dylan just had a great point of Todd Davis was very underrated when he was here with the Broncos. He got put into a lot of very bad situations. Like, yes, he did. Being against a wide receiver one-on-one. It just it's like, what are you doing? He can be a good player, but you can't play him in that kind of role and expect that he's going to be successful. There was no way that was going to work for the Broncos, and that happened way too often. And Jeremy's right. Stopping the yards after catch is key. They're going to still make their catches. There's still going to be some great plays that are designed for a tight end to get open and be the chain mover. But if you can limit the yards after catch, because that's what Darren Waller is great at, that's what Travis Kelce's great at, Noah Fant for the Broncos, if you can get him a little bit of momentum going, we've seen he can take a 10-yard pass and turn it into a 80-yard play. And so, all right, we'll get to some more super chats here real quick, but we like this topic a lot. This is kind of a neat one. Just look at these linebackers. But Castle coming in with another one. Was it the players or the scheme that worked? Both. That's the reality. Like they caught a lucky break that both tackles were out in that game. And so that defensive line and the edge rushers, they could feast on that Chiefs offensive line. You and I have talked about it before. You don't have to have the best offensive line in football to be successful, but you got to have a good enough offensive line across the board. If you got one weak spot, that offensive line can really be taken advantage of. And so the Tampa Bay could really dictate that game just with how much pressure they could get. And so they could only rush 4, drop 7 in coverage, and it was just working out well for them. And they changed up their coverage. They went to more of that cover 2 shell compared to cover 1 that they played earlier in the season, if I remember right.
It was the lowest blitz game Todd Bowles has ever called in his entire career.
Yep. And it was genius. It was a genius way to call that game. And the same way with the Broncos when they were in the Super Bowl against the Panthers. What a lot of teams did because they were so afraid of Cam Newton taking off running is they would rush, but in a certain way where you're trying to be very disciplined in your lanes.
Contained.
So he can't escape. Well, the Broncos were like, you know what? We're just going to go after this guy. We're going to hit him early. We're going to hit him hard. We're going to make him afraid to run against us. And the Broncos were just making play after play in the backfield and just really saying, we're going to make you beat us through the air. We're not going to let you go and pick up these plays in the run game. And they played one-on-one coverage on the outside, which was that was risky. And honestly, there's a few plays that if Cam Newton hit them, that they were actually open. But Cam Newton was not having a good day throwing. So thankfully it worked well for the Broncos. And again, it was a genius game plan, but also the players executed it well. Yeah.
No, that's a good call. Was it the scheme or the players? I just want to also point out the Super Bowl. Well, I don't want to go too far down the tracks there, but you ever had Pizza Ranch, Carl? Because that leads to a Super Bowl. But we got base case coming in here. Sup, guys? Any word on which QB won the day? And how are the rookies looking besides Surtain and Williams? And when is Luke going to camp? Well, Luke will go to camp as soon as he can. Right now, they're still doing a virtual interview, so hopefully they'll open that soon. And word on which QB won the day? I haven't heard from today. It does sound like, from what I've heard from who I've talked with, that Bridgewater has been noticeably better than Drew Lock so far, but there's, you're judging it based on like 5% of the picture so far, right? There's more important data to come yet. And there's a lot of data to come left as well. So,
right.
Like Bridgewater's winning right now, apparently winning right now based on who I've spoken to, but it's long from over.
Right. Right. Like I said, you've maybe had 5% of the total passes that are going to be taking place. And even just not even just the passes on the field. We're talking about what they're doing in meetings, of how comfortable the coaches feel, how comfortable the other players feel. There's so much that's going to go into this decision that we're a long ways from seeing anything happen. And like I said, I've heard the same thing. Bridgewater has been the more consistent guy. Drew Lock has had his wow throws where he's fitted into some really tight windows and people are going, okay, that's why we really like this guy and still like his potential. But then you see some other decisions that you're going, what in the world is going on? I think it was the Monday practice, where he had 2 interceptions. He also had 2 that were dropped. That, I mean, if he has a 4 interception day, a lot of people are going into more of a panic than they were even with the 2. And, it just, Lock's got to show certain things and Bridgewater's got to show certain things. And right now, Lock is not quieting the waters of the issues that he's had in the past. When you're hearing that a lot of these look like bad decisions, that they are not great throws, that some of them are overthrows. When you're hearing some of those things, that his footwork hasn't always been great in some of these passes. All those things are the things that we were like, hey, he's got to go out there and prove he's better at this year. And so far, that has not been the case. But again, like I said, there's been very limited reps. And we haven't even gotten Cortland Sutton back. Noah Fant's been out. Garrett Bowles has been. Was he the one that had his wisdom? Oh, no, that was Noah Fant that had his wisdom teeth taken out. So
good luck.
Yeah. And
listen to this. Albright noted Drew is still having trouble after his first read, only practice, but noteworthy. Yeah, that's been one of the biggest things that we've harped on here, even since last season. But the data reflects the film there, which is unfortunate, but he can improve, right? Like this. Yep. And I just keep coming back like, okay, well, is it great that we're in a position where like we don't know if we have a franchise quarterback, we're having a quarterback battle again, blah, blah, blah. But it could be Trevor Siemian versus Paxton Lynch. So looking on the sunny side there, because that's all you can do. And the other question from Base Case, any other rookie news? I do know that they were talking about K. Vincent Jr. today. Lloyd Cushenberry had an interview where he owned how bad he was last year, and stats reflect that. I do like a player when they are bad, not making excuses, owning it. So that's great. You love to see that. But he was talking about K. Vincent Jr. flying around out there, one of the fastest players at LSU, and might even be one of the fastest players on the Broncos as well. So he's one that I am looking out for. But other than that, I haven't heard very much. Baron Browning, I guess Quinn Miners is out there competing too. But I don't know. But what about you, Carl? You look frozen. Are you there? Okay.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I was trying to catch up on the chat here real quick because I was listening to you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the main rookies are the ones that we've heard about so far. But obviously, Juwan Johnson has had a couple big plays in practice so far. He had the big interception on Jamar Johnson. Got too many Jamar. But I had the big interception, and then he had another one that he did drop from Drew Lock as well later in practice, from what I understand. So, I think he's showing exactly what he kind of showed in college, of being that turnover machine that's going to go make you some big plays. But his main thing is going to be, once the pads come on, is he going to be consistent as a tackler? So
you have to be. You have to be in the scheme at the safety position, because Fangio takes off linebackers and uses safeties as run fits. So if you're not doing it as a safety, probably not going to play. Let's get to Cody Potter here real quick, because he's been sitting here. He's been chomping at the bit with a $5 super over on YouTube. Guys, if you're joining us on YouTube and you can't be as generous as Cody is with us here today and in many shows, thank you, Cody. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share to Mile High Huddle. Do you see us changing to a run-first team, knowing we have a killer defense with questionable quarterback play? It may help us win close games and keep the defense fresh. I do think that's certainly a possibility. Obviously, in a vacuum, you'd rather be a pass-oriented team, because that's what the data dictates, is you're more likely to score touchdowns and make big plays if you're passing the football. That being said, sometimes you have to go against the data based on your personnel. And let's just take quarterback out of it for a second even. Melvin Gordon was a top 10 running back last year, top 5 down the stretch. That the sample size that a lot of people like to talk about to end the season, Melvin Gordon was killing it. I think the only other running back who was like definitively better might have been Jonathan Taylor, which, surprise, surprise, rookie running back killing it, fresh legs. But he's the one. So it's definitely a possibility. I hope it's not the long-term identity for the team, because I don't think that is a way to build sustainable success. But if you want to limit turnovers, if you want to shorten games, if you want to kind of have an identity on offense that you haven't, this team hasn't really had an identity on offense except not being good over the last few years. So I think it would. This is a good point. I think it's definitely something that the Broncos could look into. I will say, though, the interior offensive line was really bad last year, just in general across the board. All three of them, especially in the ground game. And I don't really care who your running back is. If the interior offensive line is struggling to get a push and execute their blocking scheme, the running backs are going to be limited and maybe even struggle. It's a dependent position. So we need to see how that interior offensive line improves this season.
All right. What else we got coming up here? I've seen quite a few super chats coming in. No, we got Gio in the building as well. I think. All right. We got Dave from Georgia. I'm confused. Should Locke be struggling or tearing our defense up? Hashtag let them hate. Hashtag state of being. So, I mean, this is the whole chicken and egg thing. Yes, there are going to be times where these guys struggle against this defense. The big question is not really, are there going to be times where he struggles? It's, how is he struggling? Is he still showing the exact same issues that he had last year? Is he struggling, like Benjamin Albright said, of getting past his first read, where he really looks very hesitant once that first read isn't open? What's he doing? Is he more accurate? Is he being smarter with the football, where he's taking some of those checkdowns? Is he triple coverage compared to making the right decision where the guy is open? Those are the things that I want to see. If he's making the right decision and the defense just makes a great play, that's a whole nother thing. Like, the defense is just great. But if it is, like I said, if he's throwing into triple coverage, that's not forgivable. Like that's the thing. When you get to the sideline, your coach is sitting there saying, what were you seeing? Because that was not open. And there were plays last year. That's exactly what happened with Drew Lock. And so, yes, both of them are going to have their time to struggle. Both of them had their turnovers yesterday. But I do think that the coaches are going to value the quarterback that's going to make the right decisions. because with a great defense, with a strong running game, you just you have weapons. Just have a quarterback that gets it to the right spot at the right time and doesn't have to go out there and, make all the great throws. Doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers where he's playing with scrub wide receivers and still playing at an MVP level. If you get into Jerry Jeudy's hands as he's running, let him go take a 10-yard slant and turn it into a 50-yard play. That's all you need.
Yep. Absolutely. So we still have a long way to go. The quarterback battle. We'll see. And I just hope everybody can accept whatever reality comes of it, because I know there's been a lot of speculation, both sides, and a lot of poo throwing all around. But eventually it's going to come out in the wash, and reality is going to unveil itself or reveal itself, and it will be what it is. We got Naj in here. Naj, hope you're doing well, man. It's been a hot second with the $20 super over on YouTube. Appreciate it, Naj. Hey, brothers, always appreciate the insight. Speaking of appreciation, not including quarterback, which position group on the team do you have the most concerns about? And what, if anything, do you feel the team can do to improve that group? Man, this is going to be weird for me because this is always something where I'm like, oh, the team's not as bad as you'd think there. But the offensive line, I guess, is the one. I do like the depth there, but I'm really not concerned, but I'm more so curious how the interior unveils itself. Like, can Moody maybe take one of the spots, right? Like, as Reisner struggled last year, Glasgow was dealing with an ankle injury, not playing incredible football. Cushenberry struggled, but Quinn Miners, is he going to be a guy who can take the position away, or is he one that's maybe like you're talking to more so like the end of the season kind of thing, where it's like, okay, we got to figure out what we have here because the season's lost. Let's see if switching in Miners there because Cushenberry's struggled. So that one concerns me, and right tackle as well. We talked about earlier, you can be fine on the offensive line as long as you don't have an absolute, turnstile out there. And I do think that the Broncos, in theory, should be better at right tackle this season. But I think Massey has a pec strain right now. I think I saw he was out in practice. That right tackle position does concern me. Just is what it is. I'd rather have two good tackles and mediocre interior guys than anything else. But here we are. And can the team do anything to improve that group? I guess I go out there and sign Morgan Moses. But after signing Fleming and Massey, I'm not sure that is really something that would happen. I don't know. I guess right tackle. But a lot of my thinking right now, like, this team is pretty well set, again, outside the quarterback position, which we just don't know yet. I'm not going to leave that up to you to interpret. But a lot of the concerns I'm looking at this team right now aren't really 2021 things as they are long-term, right? Like linebacker, edge rusher, long-term, et cetera, stuff like that. And Mark Anthony coming in, also killing it, keep killing it, the BTB boys. Thank you very much, Mark. Always appreciate you and your levity in the comment section. So what do you think, Carl? Any positions that concern you?
Yeah, I'll go tight end.
That's a good one. Yep.
Noah Fant, both of his first 2 years, he's been hurt.
Yep.
He's had his times of missing games or just not being at 100%. And he's a great player. I think he could be a true elite tight end because of that athleticism that he has, and just. There are some limitations to his game. He's not the greatest blocker. He's not going to be your true inline blocker. Broncos don't really have a true inline blocker right now that I'm sitting there saying get on the field. We talked about it before the draft that might be an area that they look at because they just don't have that guy. And then, of course, you got Okwebanam, who is coming off of injury. And what is he going to be? And the problem is he has so much that overlaps with Noah Fant. And so how are you going to use those two guys on the field if you do have them both on the field? Mm-hmm. And I still think he has some limitations to his game that don't make him a true number one tight end out there. But again, it's just a position that you've got some injury concerns, you got some inline blocker concerns, and yet last year the Broncos used a lot of two tight end sets, and they targeted the tight end. I think you've shown the stats on Twitter quite a bit. They were a top 5 at targeting tight ends, right?
Per game. Yep. Per game. Only behind they were 4th behind the Eagles, Raiders, and Chiefs, which, hello, look at the team. The personnel dictates that a bit. So,
right.
There is more of a conversation, I think, as far as like there's a difference between do the Broncos target tight ends versus do they play two tight end sets, and they do tend to lean more towards the middle there. But they're still on the right side of the bell curve when it comes to the averages. Like the average last year for 12 personnel was 20%. The Broncos 22, tied 11th. Yep. So would you like him to see more? I guess the question is, like, would you rather see more Noah Fant and Albert Okwuegbunam taking Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton off the field? Not me. I mean, no disrespect to Albert Okwuegbunam, who I think is last year I pushed against, like, just patience for him, right? Like, just patience. He's got a lot to work on. Got some good traits, but like he's got a lot to learn and improve on. But this year, what the personnel dictated, the Broncos' best formation is going to be 11 personnel with Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton on the outside, Jerry Jeudy in the slot, and Noah Fant in line with, I guess, Williams/Gordon in the back. I don't care which one. They're both going to be fine this year. Yeah. So we had another couple super chats here coming in. Did we get to? Did you ever? You said the tight end position. A good call on the wide tight end. That's another position where it's like, okay, Broncos have a need long term for that. But is it one that I'm like worried about it as far as like a first round need? No, not at all. So Mark coming in here. Thank you so much, Mark Anthony, coming to the $4.99 super over on YouTube. I don't trust anything till the season. Keenum was killing in camp and sucked. Best to wait. Skeptically optimistic about Locke. I must be a hater. And I keep making this point as well. I'm just getting PTSD flashbacks from people when it was the 2016 offseason, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian, they look like they're sucking butt right now. But it's the no-fly zone, right? Like, it's just the no-fly zone. So, well, that's true. It's a zero-sum game. If it was still the no-fly zone, but once it wasn't the no-fly zone, they made other teams look like the goddamn excuse my language, but look like the no-fly zone out there. So we won't really know until we're up against the Vikings, who also are a pretty good team. But like, is it because the Broncos defense is great, or is it because the quarterbacks are struggling?
Right. And I will say though, as bad as Keenum was, he's been the best quarterback. I would say he's been the best quarterback the Broncos have had since the 2014 season. Like him and Trevor Siemian in that 2016 season could go back and forth of who had the better year. But I mean, that's the reality. That's how bad it's been for the Broncos. That Keenum, who sucked, might be the best that the Broncos had.
Yeah. That Broncos offense that year, I think, was like 15th in DVOA. It's the defense fell off the cliff that season as well. Talking about tight ends, that was like one where George Kittle just absolutely went off. But also Tim addressed but he said the post office did it. I don't know about this, but when I got my box, the hat on it, it said Nick. It was spelled totally wrong too. Nick N-I-K, certified lock hater, Kendall Kendall. So I don't know what was going on there, but I got a good chuckle out of it either way.
Yeah. He just messaged me during the show. He said, "I like you better."
Me too, actually, unfortunately. So does my wife. No, I'm just anyway, Chase Wellner coming in here. Who steps in at tight end 2 till Albert is full speed? Oh my God. I guess Andrew Beck, but I do not feel, I grit my teeth saying it. You know, it's like probably not Austin Fort. And I had a comment here just talking about tight ends here, and a second ago somebody was saying, hey, what's up with Noah Fant? Here we go. Tim Durr. Thank you very much for the super there also. But Tim Durr saying, I thought Fant was more of a finished product. Obviously, you want him to catch the ball, but is he really that one-dimensional? I don't know where you got that from. We're talking about Albert Okwuegbunam being a bit one-dimensional, but Fant came in. He was only 21 years old. He was one of the youngest players in the draft that year. And he played a position where even though he was further along because he went to Iowa and Iowa still runs a pro-style offense, they ask the tight ends to do a lot of different stuff, just like they would in the NFL. But Fant's, you can see the body transformation, right? You put a picture of Fant up his rookie minicamp to like where he's at now. Dude has put on some mass. He's starting to look like a wide tight end out there because he's that thick, in a good way. So I would not say Fant is one-dimensional. You do want him to you would like to see him, obviously. I thought he's actually pretty underrated as a blocker at this point. He was really good blocker for them last year, but contested catches, that's something where it's still like you want that tight end to be really tough over the middle. And sometimes in traffic, Noah Fant can be a little bit hit or miss. That's probably my biggest concern with Noah Fant right now. But he's really full speed ahead. If the quarterback position can at least be average, Noah Fant's trajectory top 8, top 5 tight end this year. I really believe that. So Gio coming in here saying, hit those like buttons, everyone, all caps, multiple exclamation points. Looks like 6 exclamation points. So if you don't do it, Gio's going to come for you. because that's when you have 6. It's serious. Coming in here also again with the $10 super. Thank you so much, Gio. I'm out sick tonight. Well, I feel better, Gio. Never fun. Is it a man cold or just either way? Hope you feel better. But we've all been there. I'm out sick tonight, but it's great to be here live tonight. Oh, thank you so much. These two are great as well. Keep up the good content. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Hashtag Lock will win. Carl, I know that you and I, at least when we started doing this in 2016, we took off the fan hats to an extent and put on the analyst hats. But I'll say it right here in front of everyone. I am pulling for Lock to win this. It is better for the Broncos long term if Lock is the better quarterback and he ends up winning the job. But I'm not here to tell you what I want to happen. I'm here to tell you what I see and what I think will happen. So at odds, but we'll see. And Luke coming in here, just a casual 2:00 here in Ireland. Sounds like it's time for a Guinness. God, have you been to Ireland, Carl?
I have not. My wife has.
Beautiful.
Yeah, my wedding gift for my wife was something she'd gotten in Ireland before we met. She had seen it and said, "I'm getting this for my future husband." Boom, got it.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's the Guinness. My wife and I both have certificates as official Guinness pourers. So if you guys need that, oh my gosh, the Guinness tour is awesome, and the building is shaped like a kind of like a stout pint glass because they're a little bit different, and the top room is it's like a sky roof kind of thing, and that's supposed to be the foam, and you got a view over Dublin. So very, very, very beautiful. And Goofy saying, "How dare you use logic, Nick?" I can't help it. I'm a robot at this point. And I also saw Goofy earlier saying he would super chat $100 if the Avs won and $200 if the Nuggets won. So somebody screenshot that and make sure it's on Tuesday night. Goofy, don't tease us and then go to a different show and do that. But no, that's good fun. I'm not a hockey fan really, or frozen stickball as I like to say to tease my friends. Not really a basketball fan. I prefer to play basketball. But full speed ahead, go Nuggets and Avs.
Yep.
When these fans are happy, I'm happy. So that's what I'm pulling for as well.
Yeah, I was telling John before the show, I was up watching the game 3. Unfortunately, that they lost, but I was up at midnight because I'm in Central Time, and my daughter, not wanting to go to bed, she's like, "Oh, I'll watch hockey with Dad," and it's just one of those cool moments. She snuggled in. We got to talk about hockey. Thankfully, she didn't ask too many complicated questions because I don't know the sport very well. Mostly like, why is that goalie wearing so many pads? Like, because a giant puck is being shot at him, and that sounds very painful. And but it was a really cool memory with my daughter that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time with the Avs. So I really appreciate that, and I'll be definitely tuning in tonight, watching the whole thing. Might even get my daughter to come watch it with me again. We'll see if she wants to stay up late. But definitely pulling for those two teams, and appreciate all of you tuning in here before that game kicks off here in about 10, 15, 20 minutes or so. And all right, Jason Peters coming in here, getting back to some Bronco football. I hear Mike Boone is having a good camp. Have you heard anything about Mike Boone?
I heard that he had a drop, but other than that, I've heard that he has been pretty darn good. So obviously he is taking to the Melvin Gordon not being in there. There's more reps to go around because of that. But the dude is a dynamic athlete. Doesn't always correlate to being a great running back. That's another position where like footwork, vision, et cetera, might be more important than the actual athletic tools. But you'd be limited if you don't have the athletic tools. So having a good camp, that's good. To me, it just sounds like somebody who is about to take Royce Freeman's job, and please somebody take it, just maybe even a conditional 7th round pick. And what's the farthest out we can get one? Like 2025? 2024? 2024. Give us a conditional 4th round pick in 2024 for Royce Freeman, because I don't think Royce Freeman is horrible by any means, but he is man without a spot here, the way the Broncos roster is shaping up. So is what it is. Didn't think he was worth a 3rd round pick, though, in that draft. I do want to say that.
All right, well, we got a great one here from Chase Wellner looking ahead to this season.
Yeah.
Do you guys like any Broncos for fantasy? I like Fant and Judy will have a big year if Bridgewater starts, in my opinion. So this kind of comes back to, we talked about it, I think, last week a little bit, that if Bridgewater starts, it probably means much better things for Judy. If Locke starts, it probably means much better things for Sutton. So each quarterback has their different types of wide receivers that they like. I mean, you think about Tom Brady. How many slot receivers have had just career years. I mean, just got paid big time because Tom Brady loves those short, white, not quite all that fast slot tight ends, but they are great route runners that get themselves open. That's what he likes. And they just kept giving them to him. So, yeah, I think it does matter which quarterback starts. And we saw, I think, a highlight today from practice where Judy was covered by Callahan and got a little bit of separation. And just you could see that chemistry coming from Bridgewater where the throw was down low. Judy went and got it. And he looks like he is primed for a big year. And Fant,
yep.
Who's a better quarterback for him this year?
Honestly, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it that much. I don't worry about that as much, more so than Fant just staying healthy, right? Like if we just need him to stay on the field. Yeah. It honestly might be Drew Lock because of how much Drew Lock likes to throw the middle of the field versus on the boundary, despite the arm talent that Lock has. I think it's maybe some of the timing stuff, but he prefers to pepper the middle of the field. That's one of the reasons I believe that Lock is so much better with play action than in like top 10, top 15 in play action versus dead last with non-play action passes as far as efficiency goes. So it might actually be Fant, but don't quote me on that one. I have a hard time going back and forth with that one. As far as fantasy goes for me, and you're talking about actually pivot real quick. You're talking about that rep on Facebook or Twitter with the Broncos. Also, I spy with my little eye Tyree Cleveland cooking somebody out there as well, putting a cornerback on skates. So Tyree Cleveland's sighting as well. I really like to draft rookie running backs and then stack them on my bench. And then eventually somebody is going to get hurt or they're going to take a spot and kill it. And that's how I won a league last year with Jonathan Taylor because he was, Marlon Mack, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then Jonathan Taylor just exploded at the end of the season and carried me to a championship. Yep. So if you can get Javonte Williams late and lean on him potentially, that's one I would be interested in. I also think because of the name recognition of Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, getting Williams there might be pretty darn good value. And also Melvin Gordon older, last year of his contract, had some injuries in the past as well. I don't know. And that's a good call. Somebody said, getting Javonte Williams late might be a good decision. So he's one that interests me. I'm skeptical, and I tend to try to avoid all Broncos because I'm worried that I will not be I try really not to be biased on here, but then I don't want to like overrate them unless they had paid me. Then I was just scooping them all up. But don't want to be that guy because I'm too close to the situation. Know how good they are, but know that fantasy football is different than real football and how dependent they are on different things. So Dave from Georgia coming back in with a $10 super. Thank you so much, Dave. I'll even throw in a hashtag let them hate for you for that one, for double dipping today. Who are your top 3 players on the bubble? Hashtag Broncos country. Carl, go ahead. Go first.
I'll say Royce Freeman is on the bubble. I mean, you got Boone that came in, who is somebody that some of the coaching staff knows, and of course, the GM knows him really well. They like what he can bring to special teams. Royce Freeman, not exactly a great special teams player out there for the Broncos. And, of course, then you got the running back. So I think he's right there on the edge. He's going to have to make some noise here in camp or make some noise in a preseason game that shows them that he is worth keeping around. So that would be one. I'm trying to think. Wide receivers deep, cornerbacks deep. Bassie might be one that's going to struggle to make this roster coming off of his injury. I feel for him because, I mean, he wasn't great last year, but the Broncos at cornerback were just so far down the list. He made at least a couple plays that showed you some promise. But I feel like he's going to really struggle to make this roster. I just can't even, I don't see how he does make the roster, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good call. Some other ones, just looking over the roster here, just former draft picks. Derek Tusca, right? You drafted him in the 7th round last year, but then you used another pick on Jonathan Cooper, and Malik Reed took that other edge rushing, the more finesse edge rushing position, like a bull by the horns. Duke Dawson, another one who might get lost in the shuffle here, given just how much the Broncos have invested in the secondary. And Sam Martin, another one, maybe a penny pinching move, but going with Max Duffy instead of Sam Martin could save some money. Could Bassie be a practice squad guy? Yes, he could. I think the one that's the most interesting that would, from the dollar signs side, is Bryce Callahan. He's really good, and I get that, but like they can save $7 million. off the top of my head, by moving on from him with how much depth they have at cornerback, only 1 year left on his contract, all the injuries he's had at 30 years old now. So those are ones that I don't want to move on from Bryce Callahan, but that'd be one of those ones where like when they moved on from Todd Davis, like he's a solid player. Like I don't really get it, but you're saving $5 million in that move. So another good one here. Yeah, Jesse, good call. Deante Spencer is a name that, depending on how the wide receiver room shakes out, could be on the bubble.
Well, and I would think about KJ Hamler when you
and
get Cortland Sutton. Yeah, I mean, you got both those guys, but you just think about you want to get him as many opportunities to go make a big play. Yeah, but he's going to struggle to get actually on the field for the offense unless Tim Patrick or Cortland Sutton get traded, or Jerry Jeudy if we're trading for a certain quarterback. I don't want to talk about that too much, but otherwise he's going to struggle to find plays on the offense. So I just see the Broncos really trying to get him more involved in special teams.
Yeah, nope, 100%. That is a great call. Marshall Lock at safety on the bubble too. Yeah, when you use 2 rookie picks at that position, another one that's in that kind of category that's on the bubble. Josh Watson, right? Like we'll see. No, Spencer's the only guy worth a damn who can catch a punt. I think Tyree Cleveland could catch a punt, and we'll see about KJ Hamler as well. Put on 10 pounds, right? So that could be one as well that gets up there. But we'll see. I don't know. It's a lot of fun to watch that. I can't wait for preseason games as well. Just because, from where you and I sit, Carl, there's really, there still is room for interpretation in those preseason games, but not to the extent where it is this OTA is going on, right? Like if somebody's getting whipped out there, we see it. We'll call it as we see it. But just more meaningful reps. We'll see. We're just making mountains out of molehills at this point. And it's early, but it's new football. It's stuff that's different. It's not regurgitated information based on stuff we've rehashed 300 times, beating a dead horse, so to speak. So we'll keep doing it because it's new info and we need it. I need it in my veins. Gosh, I'm ready for even more. Now we got a taste. Yeah. I need more.
I do have to laugh because you were talking about Callahan, and I saw this comment. Callahan was playing at an all-pro level before he got. I did have to laugh when he was doing his after practice interviews and stuff, and he said, I'm tired of being injured as well, and so I made some changes this year, and I'm not eating fast food as much. And I just like when you talk about how these players talk about, I'm in the best shape of my life, and here's Bryce Callahan going, I don't eat as much fast food. I'm like, well, at least he's honest, I guess, because I do know some of these guys. I think it was it Chad Johnson loved fast food? Ochocinco. I think, he would eat it all the time. But yeah, it just, sometimes you hear those kind of things talked about. It just, it's kind of like nails on a chalkboard because you hear it every year when these guys talk about changing diets and everything else. And we got Ocho versus Science. I saw that shirt and I thought about sending it to you, Nick.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's a character. I actually really do enjoy his brand on Twitter. But I put it in the same category as like The Onion, right? Like it's satire. It's got to be satire. Yeah. But guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today, unless we get any supers during this. I know that there's a sports ball event tonight that you guys got to go off and get to. Is it the Avs tonight? I honestly don't know.
It's Avs tonight, Nuggets tomorrow. They go every other day, thankfully.
Okay, I would be more interested in the Nuggets than the Avs, but either way, if they win, that's great. Also, the Avalanche just have awesome ass uniforms, and what a cool name too. So pulling them for you guys, right? So just like hopefully you all pull for my Hawkeyes, right? I'm doing this for you so I can get payback later. But that's going to do it for. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you see one of your Iowa Hawkeyes got into a huge fight today?
I did, yeah, because he picked off that trash quarterback, Josh Allen, and took a pick six. AJ Epinesa, baby. Nothing like it, man. He's a monster. Hopefully have a good year this year. They drafted 2 edges, so I don't know what that means for him. But, let's go Avs. There you go, guys. Let's go Avs. Go Avs, go. Hopefully they're going to win, and thank you guys for the kind comments. That's going to do it for us today. So I'm Nick Kendell. Follow me at Nick Kendell MHH. You can also follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler. And also, guys, shout out to the producer behind the scenes helping us run the show, pulling up the chats, making sure we're staying on topic. Buona Beast, Follow him at John KMHH. And also, even while that's going on, contributing to the conversation in the chat as well. I don't know how he does it. What's going on there? He's not wearing his hat today that everybody always talks about, but he's got his rotate. Oh, he's putting it on now. Maybe they're both on. He has 3 hats on. Oh, it's a different one. Okay, yeah, guys, shout out to him as well. Obviously, follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. Go follow us on Facebook as well. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you're joining us on YouTube today, guys, please subscribe, like, and share. If you're joining us on Facebook, click those thumbs up. I do like that number 33 I see right now for Javonte Williams. And thank you, everybody, for the kind comments coming in here. Smash the like button on the way out. Roy saying good night, guys. Good night to you, Roy. Hope you're doing well. Tim taking it one up. Have a wonderful night, guys. Great pod as always. We appreciate that. I got to go Nuggets from Mike S. Jeremy saying, thanks, boys. Good talk, great pod. Be well, everyone, from a guy named Wanna Beast. Whoever the heck that is. No, just kidding. Go Nuggets from Vandermark and Build Broncos from Tommy Simmers. Be well, everyone. As John says, everyone stay safe. Go Avs tonight. Go Avs, go. And go Broncos.